Welcome to Authentically You, the podcast where we explore the amazing stories of women who are walking out their Christ-centered purpose in very impactful ways. As business owners, nonprofit founders, creators, educators, CEOs of their homes, and more. I'm your host, Maleia Evans, and today we have an inspiring story to share with you. Today's episode I've titled Planting Seeds, Harvesting Hope, where we're going to spotlight the remarkable stories of women who are shaping the future of agriculture. In this episode, I'm honored to have three incredible guests, each representing a unique perspective on life in ag. First, we'll hear from an ag educator, Marilauren Rogers. She's dedicated to empowering the next generation with knowledge and skills they can apply in adult life in their careers, either in agriculture or other industries, and training future leaders of our country with the necessary skills to perform in professional environments. And it's the reason her story is quite inspiring today. Next, we'll hear the inspiring story of an ag entrepreneur, Lindsey Parham, owner of Parham's Pumpkins, who'll share how she's transforming the business landscape with innovative approaches to farming and sustainability, and how she's turned a love for pumpkins and mums into a small business that her entire family participates in. Lindsey is also an ag educator, and she'll have some insights from that perspective as well. And finally, no story about women in ag would be complete without the perspectives of a farmer's wife. With our third guest, Summer Gray, we'll have a glimpse into the often unseen but critical role she plays in her family's farming operation. Most farmers will tell you they are only as successful as the farmer's wife is strong. Summer's story also has an entrepreneurial twist, and she has recently embarked on her own faith leap into small business ownership. And let me tell you, it's simply delicious. So from taking care of the family, the farm, and running her own business, you're truly going to be inspired when you hear the story about the Praying Bakery in this episode as well. So join us for this unique episode. Get ready to laugh, to cry, to have a better understanding of why having women in agriculture is so important. As always, we want you to be inspired, encouraged, and empowered to pursue your own big dream with faith as your compass and courage as your guide. This is Authentically You, where every venture is grounded in the belief that with God, all things are possible. I'm Maleia Evans, your host, and I am so glad you're here. So I'll see you on the inside. Are you looking to start or grow a business in Northwest Tennessee? If so, the Mill Workspace Entrepreneur Center is the starting point for business in our region. They offer one-on-one counseling for startups and growing businesses as well. They also offer educational one-time workshops and multi-week business acceleration classes for all Northwest Tennessee residents. Whether you're thinking of starting a small retail business or you're looking to scale an e-commerce business nationwide, they are there to help. If you're ready to get started, you can schedule an appointment on their website at themillworkspace.com. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon in our studio for this episode, the sixth episode. Can we just say that all together? The sixth episode? I can't believe it. Of Authentically You. And that might not sound like much to some seasoned podcasters, but I never thought we'd get past the second one, to be quite honest. And I'm super excited. But I am really excited about this episode's topic and our theme, which is women in agriculture. It's the October episode, and October being the month that there's the big national FFA convention that several of you here at the table have been involved in and will be involved in. And so we're focusing on agriculture in the month of October here at Authentically You, and what better way than to celebrate three amazing women who are walking out your Christ-centered purposes in your lives in the field of agriculture, and in such different ways. And so let's dive in. We're going to talk to an ag educator, an ag entrepreneur, and an ag educator, and a farmer's wife. Mm-hmm. The great perspective. I can't wait to get to your story. So let's just dive right in. I want to share with you some research I was doing and kind of preparing myself for, being fairly knowledgeable about your industry. According to the Census of Agriculture, I didn't even know there was a Census of Agriculture, but in 2022, women accounted for 36% of all the ag producers in the U.S. But while that number of women in agriculture is rising, few are actually holding leadership positions in the ag industry. In crop science, Adrian Percy noted that even today, there are relatively few women who are invited to give talks at conferences. There are few women occupying senior positions in many ag-related companies or on ag-related company boards. Less than 10% of women occupy leadership positions in agriculture. That's not a good number, ladies. But for you, it means you really are paving a way in such a minority, paving a way for other young women to come up behind you in the ag industry. And that stat now combines all of your industries together: education, business, production, and farm management, all of that together. And so all three of you are really special. You're among that less than 10% of women that are paving the way. So let's talk a little bit about how each one of you are doing that and how you're walking out that Christ-centered purpose and finding your path in the field of agriculture. And let's start with our educator. Let's just dive right in with our educator, Marilauren Rogers. And I guess it's probably the best time to have full disclosure to our viewers and to our listeners. For our viewers, you may be thinking, wow, those two look a lot alike. How ironic is that? And that it could only possibly be because she is my daughter. And I'm thrilled to have her here today to be able to tell her story about her journey into agriculture. And so let's just dive right into that. How about let's just start with your fairly non-traditional entry into agriculture and how you came about even being involved in the field of agriculture today.
Well, when I was a kid, my older stepsister was an FFA member, and so I went to some sheep shows and watched her do FFA things. And as a little sister, I always said whatever my big sister did would be not what I would be doing. And so I was not going to be anything like my big sister until the time came to go to high school. And all of my close friends and I were like, hey, well, let's just all take ag together. And we were registering for classes for high school. And I dove right in to the FFA world as a rising freshman in high school. I got a sheep and started my sheep production experience and went to FFA camp and all the things, and was heavily involved in FFA as a high school student with my close friends and my then boyfriend, who is now husband, Kyle. We had some wonderful ag educators who were really inspiring. And I had some other teachers that were not in the ag field, but my biology teacher was my biggest inspiration to go into education in general. I wanted to be just like Miss Gatlin when I grew up. And so I started college as a biology major, intending to go into education to teach biology just like Miss Gatlin did. And decided that maybe biology wasn't it, but I knew that God definitely was calling me to be a teacher. There was never any doubt about that. It was just what grade level or what subject. There was lots of questions around that. And then entering into my education career, those questions still circled. I've taught in 5 different schools. I've taught all grade levels from 5th up through 12th, and I've only been a teacher for 10 years. It's my 11th year. So I have 5 different schools under my belt and 7 different grade levels under my belt, because I just always felt like every time I transitioned from one school to another or from one grade level to another, I truly always just felt like it was God calling me to this next place, and never feeling like I could settle anywhere. And as I look back and I see where I am now to where I have been, all of those puzzle pieces were pieces that had to happen for me to get to where I am. All of that shifting and changing and searching for what is my purpose in this field, it all makes sense in retrospect. Now, how I became an ag educator, when I got to my current school, which was always kind of the pinnacle, I always wanted to be at the school that I'm at now. When I got there, I was a math teacher. I had been teaching math for several years prior to that, and they had a position vacancy in their ag department. And my dear husband had finished his ag business degree just 2 or 3 years before that, and he was really eager and searching for a way to use his ag business degree that he had worked so hard to get. And he kept having this feeling of needing to find purpose and not just clocking into a job and going to work and then clocking out and coming home, but he wanted to find a purpose in his career. So I pestered our principal almost every day about my husband and his qualifications for the ag vacancy. And finally, he got hired. And so Kyle joined me at the same school the same year. We both started at that school together, me in the math department and him in the ag department. And it was through that I became heavily involved in the ag department, just as the ag teacher's wife, going on the trips, being the female chaperone. Because I had so much FFA knowledge from my own experience in FFA, I was coaching some of their career development and leadership development teams and helping out in those ways. And so I've started to become more and more involved just in that way. And then a couple years later, another vacancy where we are a 2-teacher program at our school in our ag department. And so the other position became vacant, which led to, after lots and lots of prayer and lots of, again, pestering the principal to no end, led to me really feeling like the Lord was calling me to join my husband in the ag education field, so that we could truly make it a family affair. We drag our daughter all over the place anyways, to all the FFA events, and it just made sense for, if I'm already going to be there, I'm already going to be involved in the process, I might as well get paid for it. Until I became an ag educator officially, whenever I'd be on ag trips with him, we would joke and call me the unpaid ag advisor. And so now I am getting paid to do the work that I had loved to do anyways.
Which is, so back at the beginning of that story, as you may remember, I told you a few moments ago, I was the mom. And when she mentioned to me in the end of the 8th grade that she was signing up for ag classes, and I'm talking now to all of you moms who are sitting out there living in the middle of cities, and your front yard is concrete and your backyard is your swimming pool, and you don't have a farm and you don't have land to put this sheep that your kid wants to come home with out back. I'm here to tell you, don't fight it. Don't hesitate if your child comes home and says they want to take agriculture classes in high school and even now in middle school. I think it's fantastic that there are some ag programs that are developing in middle school. When your child comes home to you and says, I want to take ag classes, or I want to be an FFA, or I want to be in 4-H, or whatever the ag program is, don't hesitate. Let them do it. And I'm here to give you that testimony as a mom who freaked out when she was, comes home, and because we lived in town, I didn't have anywhere to put a sheep. I mean, what was I going to do with a sheep, for crying out loud? It couldn't go in our backyard. I'm pretty sure there was an ordinance against it if we had. And so it really truly was a pivotal point in both of our lives for her to become involved in agriculture, in FFA, and taking those ag classes. We literally moved to another home so that we could have land, so that she could have her ag projects and do all those things. But then watching and learning more about what was involved in ag education it's so much more than showing sheep and crop. It's so much more than that. It's such
I was just about to
leadership
say
program.
to not scare all the moms out there that not all students who take ag
Right.
classes are required to purchase a sheep and move to a new place to raise that sheep.
Right.
That was just my journey,
That was our journey, yeah.
in ag education. But you can get involved in the ag industry and in ag education without having to
Do
any of the sheep production or crop production. There's plenty of opportunities in other sectors of the ag industry besides raising a sheep or growing some crops.
So let's focus for just a couple of minutes on specifically ag education as a career path and as an industry. What are some of the biggest challenges as an ag educator? And Lindsey, also, I'll pitch this question to you too. What are some of the biggest challenges that you find facing in education for the next generation of ag professionals?
I think the biggest one right now, and it would probably be surprising because we live in such a rural area, and agriculture is the number one industry in the state of Tennessee and in the county that I live in. But we have so many students who have never had a single ounce of exposure to anything ag related. They've never grown a plant. They've never taken care of an animal. They've never seen anything in the ag industry. And so when they see the word agriculture on their registration paperwork to sign up for classes, they think, oh, well, I don't know anything about farming. And agriculture, they equate agriculture to just farming.
Right, which is what I did. Honestly, it's what I did.
Yeah, and so I think the biggest challenge is recruiting them to take the class to begin with, which my husband and I are really hitting some strides there. We went from 60 kids in our freshman ag classes last year to almost 100 this year. So we're making strides in the recruiting them to get into the class. And so then it's once they're in the class, I work really hard to give them exposure to all the different facets that could be ag related, all the different career options that they have, all the different opportunities that there are. And so just igniting a passion for the ag industry in students who have no prior experience with agriculture, that's probably the biggest challenge. And then, of course, and I'm sure you would agree, just in the education part of it, we have a generation of students who are addicted to their phones and addicted to social media, and trying to break that just to get their attention even is difficult. And getting them motivated to do the hard work, because agriculture is hard work. It does require you to put in some effort. And so motivating the students who have kind of become complacent just because we live in the technology age of scrolling on a phone all day long. Right. That's one of our challenges. What would you
Lindsey,
agree,
what do you think?
Lindsey?
Yes, amen. I agree. I always tell my students it's more than sows, cows, and plows. There's a lot more to that. I'm a little bit older, and I spent 17 years in education. I've been a teacher, I've been an administrator, and I'm back to being a teacher again. And I had the greatest honor to get to start an ag program in a very rural community, thinking it was going to be easy. It is not. You not only have to get buy-in from students, parents, you have to get buy-in from the community. And I would say the ag world is one of the most supportive in youth programs that you could ever ask for. We didn't have a greenhouse. We didn't have a shop. They gave me a classroom and basically an old storage building that had poke salad growing up through the roof of it, and old showers and the tackling dummies from the football team, and they told me to grow plants in it. It had 10-year-old fiberglass on the side of it. And I was like, you realize it's going to be really hard to grow a plant through this. And starting out, there were several. And during college, I was able to do an internship with Pioneer Seed Company. And I saw this whenever I would go. I was a PAT intern that covered 7 states in the South. when you would go to harvest or you would go to do stand counts or something like that, people would say, a woman's not supposed to be out here. And so it was still a hurdle even 20 years ago. Old men farmers, they didn't really want to listen to what you had to say. And going in, whenever they announced they were starting an ag program and there was going to be a female ag teacher, no.
Right.
She's not going to teach my kids.
And I can even remember when I was in high school, but that's why it was, I think, a bit of a shock to me when she came home, in 8th grade, wanting to be in ag. One of my pushbacks was girls can't be in ag, because when I was in high school, girls couldn't be in ag. There was always the FFA sweetheart. They always had their, beauty queen and their girl that they picked out of the senior class every year. But the ag boys voted on who they wanted their FFA sweetheart to be, but that sweetheart wasn't in ag. She wasn't taking the classes and getting the leadership skills and going to the competitions, and there were no girls in ag, even in the classes in school. And so, boy, have we come a long way. Have we come a long way.
I've always told my students, I will never ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself.
Absolutely.
And whenever we start out, every student has to learn and recite the FFA creed.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've always told them, leadership is one of the main things: premier leadership, personal growth, and career success. You may not ever, and I said, you may not ever go into the field of agriculture yourself, but are you planning on having a pet at home? Do you ever aspire to have a garden? Do you want landscape at your home? Is there grass in your yard that you will need to take care of, that something may happen to it? When you walk out of here, I do not plan on every student that walks through my classroom door to go into the field of agriculture, but I do want you to have some kind of knowledge that you can take care of things yourself,
Right.
and be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you believe the role is that women are playing in advancing agriculture in education?
I think that kind of taking a traditional view here and going off of where summer's going to come in, I think that while we definitely need to be recruiting women and men to go into the industry, we also need to be supporting the male leaders that are already there in whatever way we can. And I know that there's still definitely a gap or, a discrepancies in the percentages of male leaders versus women leaders in the industry.
But I think we're still just playing catch up.
Right.
From all those years where girls weren't in ag programs.
But I think that there are definitely plenty of women who are getting those opportunities, and that it's maybe not a bad thing that men are still leading in the world in the ways that they are. Just last year, just last year, we had an all-female FFA state officer team. And the first time that ever happened was, I think it was 2006.
I remember it.
I remember. It was my freshman year of high school. It was my very first
say how far out of school
state
I
convention.
was.
It was my very first state convention when I watched the new FFA state officers be installed, and it was an all-girls team. So there are opportunities for women to take leadership roles, and she's stepping away from the role, but Chelsea Rose has been leading the Tennessee FFA Foundation with very high honors and got a lot done in her role there.
Huge strides she has made.
And in, was it 2021 that the FFA Foundation helped to affiliate all Tennessee FFA members. So any student enrolled in ag education in the state of Tennessee, under the direction of Miss Chelsea Rose of the Tennessee FFA Foundation, since 2021, every student enrolled in an ag class in the state of Tennessee has their dues paid by the Tennessee FFA Foundation. So they don't even have to pay dues to access all of the opportunities that FFA affords them anymore. and a woman made that happen.
Wow.
So
That's what you call advancement, folks.
Yes.
That's what you call women making advancements in the agricultural industry. But to your point, too, she didn't make that decision on her own.
that's right.
There's a board, and that board is made up of some wonderful men and women who are making the decisions and setting this pace for the students in Tennessee. And so kudos to the Tennessee FFA Foundation. This is not a paid advertisement. They are not a sponsor. Let's just disclaim that right quick. They're not a sponsor of this episode, but kudos to you.
Well, and I'd like to add that the funds to do that came from the strong agriculture community
Right.
that we have, the farmers, the businesses, things like that they want to give back.
Right.
And they know what an impact ag education and FFA had on them, and they want to see that other kids get that opportunity.
That's one thing that I think is unique in agriculture in general, whether it's education, entrepreneurship, or farm production. It's a family. It's a family sector. While there are many manufacturing facilities in the manufacturing world that have great cultures inside their companies, or in the automotive industry, there may be great things happening and people feel camaraderie with their coworkers. But in agriculture, once you're in it, you're in it. You're in it, and you're part of something. You really are part of something, which I think is so unique. Real quick, before we pivot out of education into entrepreneurship on the ag side, what's the most rewarding part of being an ag educator?
For me, it's helping students realize their own potential. Like Lindsey said, the mission of the FFA organization is to promote premier leadership, personal growth, and career success in our students. And so the leadership side of it was always my favorite part, because I'm sure you'll remember this from a few years ago. I really don't like the outdoors.
No, it doesn't.
I don't.
Bugs in nature are not
Bugs in nature, not my thing. I love my animals. And knowing that I don't like nature or the outdoors, you would be surprised at how much time I spend in a chicken coop, just hanging out with my chickens. But the leadership side of things was really my bread and butter as an FFA member, and it's where I thrive as an FFA advisor. And so helping students realize their potential for leadership opportunities, for public speaking, those kinds of things, that's probably the most rewarding. And then also, just as a woman of faith, any chance that there is to share my faith in a way that's not crossing public education lines. Students, when students bring up faith-based questions, I'm allowed to answer them, and it's rewarding to me that the students see that I am a safe place for them to ask those kinds of questions and to have those kinds of conversations. That's also really special to me.
Very rewarding. And so career opportunities, career paths is one of the focuses in ag education. Career paths can mean agribusiness, right? And so not only are you in ag education, but you play a dual role in the ag industry as an ag business owner as well. Your family are farmers. You come from a family of farmers. But you took a little season a year or so ago to take a little breather from classroom and from education. And during that season, you broke ground on a pumpkin and mum farm.
Well, actually, it started 11 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And I can thank my sweet little students that sat in my classroom. When I got to start that ag program, you go to a new school. I was fortunate to go in and teach at my alma mater for 2 years. Numbers were declining at that school, and the position, I was finishing up my master's degree, and the position, my principal came to me and said, it's going to go from full-time to part-time.
Oh, wow.
I thought, oh, great. Isn't this wonderful? Well, and an opportunity at a school 20 minutes down the road, they were going to open an ag program, and I thought, my student teacher at the time came in, asked me to proofread his resume and cover letter. I did, and then I filled mine out. And whenever I went in for the interview, yes. And whenever I went in for the interview, my student teacher was walking out from the interview before me.
Oh, great.
And he looked at me. He said, "Oh," and I was like, "I wasn't going to tell you. I'm so sorry." And they took a chance on this young lady to start an ag program, young female to start an ag program that had been closed 20, 25 years. Never had one in the current building that they're in. And I was used to, at my former school, as a member and then as an advisor, we sold fruit. I mean, and that was our fundraiser for the year. Well, the band sold fruit.
Right.
And had that already established. And I thought, oh, my dear word, what will we do?
Yeah.
And I had a student that said, oh, well, there's an Amish community down the road from my house, and they have mums. And I thought, perfect. We'll start selling mums. And I hauled mums in my little Ford Explorer, about 30 or 35 at a time, driving with them in my lap, everything else, and took them during my planning period back to school. And then somebody said, oh, well, we need to sell pumpkins with them. I said, nobody is going to buy a pumpkin off a sheet of paper. They want to go, they want to look at them, they want to pick out what they want. Guess what? People will buy a pumpkin from a kid off a sheet of paper and let them bring it to it sight unseen. And my husband said, well, you know, honey, if we grew the pumpkins, your FFA can make so much more money. And I said, we both have full-time jobs. He said, oh, it's for the kids. So I have a very supportive husband. He's a lineman by trade. So we started with about 3/4 of an acre, and that was solely to sell to my FFA chapter. Well, it did so well. The next year, he doubled it. And I said, this is really getting out of hand. And
slow down.
Let me back up and say that we are high school sweethearts. So
I think that's an ag thing.
yeah, he was stuck with me, and I was stuck with him. We are stuck together still.
Yeah.
And I told him that if he ever wanted any more pumpkins, I would leave him. And then the next year, we doubled again.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, now I'm being serious this time. If we grow any more, I'm out of here. And then the next year we doubled again. And I was like, really, this has got to stop. But we started, we kind of patterned it after a local vendor. We do it on the honor system. Mm-hmm. We have pumpkins sitting out on power poles with pallets laid on top of them, price signs on the front of it. We have a wire reel with a money box attached to it. And every year people come and buy pumpkins. And they put their money in that box without anybody watching them. Yeah. And it's crazy. Mm-hmm. And this year we ended up, I say it's 12 acres. He says it's 10 acres, but whatever.
We'll go like 20.
We'll go with a middle of the road 11 acres. And it's been a rough year. It really has. I think all farmers are feeling that. Yeah. But we have been very, very blessed. The good Lord has kept our plants alive, and I don't know how, going on 6.5 weeks without rain. They have survived, and we have harvested another crop. And last year, whenever I kind of took a hiatus thing, my husband said, well, we'll just start growing the mums ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we, in a week, put out a 60 by 300 mum mat, and this year we've harvested 2,880 chrysanthemums for sale. And just this morning, we had to go buy some because we can't fill the order that we need to be delivering on Monday.
Oh, my goodness.
Because we've ran out of all of our white chrysanthemums.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's
I have
battle.
so enjoyed, you document this process on your Facebook page, Parham Pumpkins. Mm-hmm. And I have so enjoyed watching this process, from laying out the mat to cutting the holes to you coming home with these flatbeds with these gazillion little bulbs.
Yes.
It's just an amazing process.
We have the best UPS driver. And I called and bothered him, and he told me, he said, well, now I'm off 2 days this week. What day are they coming? I was like, I don't know, but I'll keep you posted. That man, he would text me. He was like, they're on my truck. I was like, I'll be waiting on you. So, yes, they come actually from Michigan.
And it's a family affair. Your
is.
father?
Well, actually, I was raised on a tobacco farm.
Okay.
Went to college on a tobacco scholarship. Swore that I never wanted to work that hard again ever in my life.
Yeah.
Because tobacco is a 13-month out of a year job. No machines. It's kind of all by hand. Uh-huh. And I firmly believe that pumpkins are the next closest thing to raising tobacco. But the ag teacher in me came out, and our daughters always get to help plant. Our daughters are always out there helping harvest. I have one that has terrible allergies that I have to give allergy shots to. And I'm like, honey, you're going to have to buckle down. I'll give you a Benadryl when we get home, but we've got to get out there and do this.
Yeah.
But I've been documenting ever since our oldest daughter is 12. We started growing these 11 years ago. So she was 18 months old riding a one-row corn planter with a John boat seat on it with a funnel between my legs to drop the seeds in. We're real high tech. We also take spray paint and have marked on the tire. So every time one of those marks comes around, we have to drop a seed. Now my husband,
genius.
My husband goes slower, but we always make for sure that they are included. I've taken pictures, so when they do make it to high school, I'm not going to force them to take ag, but I sure hope they do.
Yeah.
And I see a proficiency application in my mind. So I am documenting that they have done this.
We've got a specialized crop production business going on.
We
over
know
here.
Yes, so I have
who will be West
documented.
Tennessee Star Farmer that year.
Yes, I have been documenting all along, and both of our girls love it.
Yeah.
Anytime we've ever said maybe we need to cut back, maybe it's a little bit too much. The little one, Mama, I love this. The other day, she said, "Can I decorate the front porch?" Sure, I'm busy doing something else. We have these little wagons down at our pumpkin stand, and that child, I don't know how many wagon loads she brought up to the house, but she pulled them up that hill, and she has spread pumpkins all over our front porch, and fall has hit our house. Thanks to Haley. She is
that
all.
may be an ag.
I have been to Parham Pumpkins.
Yes, I have too.
And where you have the pumpkins and your house, that is a big hill.
Yes, it is. And
Yes.
she is a very determined young lady. And she hauled. And when I walked out on the front porch, I said, "My word, child, how many did you bring up here?" She said, "Doesn't it look pretty?" I said, "Yes, it does."
That may be another opportunity for Parham Pumpkins is to let Haley advance into being hired out to do porch decorating.
She actually does go with me, and she is the designer whenever we do fall displays.
That is fabulous.
So
That is fabulous.
Yes.
So sweet. So as a female entrepreneur, and kind of we've touched on it being still a little bit of a male-dominated industry, what specific obstacles have you had to overcome just as an entrepreneur? Aside from, the things you experienced as the educator, what have you experienced as an entrepreneur and ag business?
I think we're at a very pivotal point. People are realizing ladies play a big role in this.
Well, and I was going to say the flip side to the question is, what advantages have you found, if any?
Well, whenever we first started buying pumpkin seeds, my husband loves a traditional jack-o'-lantern. I love the pretty stuff, warded, different colors, different shapes.
Right.
He said, "Lindsey, nobody is ever going to buy those pumpkins."
Oh, no.
Guess what we sold out of first?
Yeah.
And guess what was left on those pallets?
Yeah.
He said, "Well, maybe you know what you're doing." And I said, "Do you think?" I said, "Who do you think spends the money?" So the business that we have kind of caters to females. Now, I'm not saying there's not a man coming and buying those, but I'm pretty sure they're coming to buy them to make their wife happy or their children happy.
Right.
And so the specialized crops that we grow kind of cater towards the females. And so I really think it's a lot easier for me in what we're doing because of what we're growing.
Because of the product.
Yes,
Right.
because of the product.
Right. You can sell those beautiful pumpkins a lot easier than you might be able to sell corn,
Yes.
you think?
Yes.
So what advice would you give to other women that are looking to break into some type of ag business? And we're going to pivot in just a second to something that you've done, Summer, that I still think is very much ag related, as from the finished product that you're producing, which is delicious, by the way. We'll talk about it in a minute. But so what's some advice that you've got to the woman sitting out there right now with her AirPods in, she's jogging, she's on the treadmill, she's wrangling kids, she's just wishing that life could be a little bit different for her. She's got lots of ideas and dreams. What do you say to her?
Take your dream and run with it. You may fall flat on your face, get up and try again. You need to find somebody that will support you, and there are plenty of people out there. whisper in their ear your idea, and you might be surprised who will get behind you and say, what can I do to help? If at first you don't succeed, try again.
And don't worry about the naysayers.
That's correct.
They're not supposed to be part of your journey.
They are
The
not.
naysayers are not supposed to be part of your journey.
That is
God
correct.
didn't design it that way.
That is correct.
So how do you see the role of women evolving in ag business? Do you see, like you mentioned that you thought that we were kind of in a pivotal
Yes.
point.
I remember whenever I was in high school, very few female ag teachers, very few women, and you were talking about in leadership roles, things like that. We have seen a large jump in that. I've not sat down and counted, but I would dare to say we're 50-50, or there may be more female ag teachers.
I think there might be more females now more female ag teachers than there are male ag teachers, at least in Tennessee.
That's how I see it too. And you are starting to see more and more. And I'm not going to say it's the female ag teachers that do it, but when a student in a classroom, they are looking for somebody to look up to, a mentor to look up to. And I think the mama side comes out in us, and it's somebody that they can relate to, and we can empower them. Students, other women, things like that. We empower them, and they think, you know what? I can do this. One of the greatest things that has happened, I love when a student, I had one, and she's precious to me still to this day, who called me, and she was really second guessing. She was an ag major in college, and she was really second guessing what her path should be. And she admired me enough, thought enough of me to call me and say, Miss Parham, what should I do? Well, I'll tell you, that was a lot of weight on my shoulders, because I thought, honey, I don't know if you talk to your mom and daddy. But she thought enough of me and something that I had done in a classroom that she felt the need to call me and ask me that. And I think it's those relationships, and whenever you can partner with a student or be a mama to them, because we have so many kids talking about hurdles in the classroom. These kids come from all different homes. They've had all different experiences. School is a safe place for a lot of these kids. They are looking for somebody to be a role model. And if women in agriculture can be that role model and can do something for them, I'm sure whenever y'all go out somewhere, your children have got friends that you may be a mama to them that they love to get to and come see, and just something like that you can do. But there's always people that can support you and push you along and inspire people.
Yeah. Beautiful stories. Beautiful stories. We're going to pivot now to an entirely different perspective on being a woman in ag. The farmer's wife.
Yeah.
The farmer's wife. And, I've always heard many of our farmer friends are men, and I've always heard them say that our farmer is only as successful as the farmer's wife is strong. I don't know how many times I've heard them say that. And so let's talk a little bit about your role in agriculture as the farmer's wife. And we're going to dive just first and just tell me what your experience is like being a farmer's wife. What does a day in the life of a farmer's wife look like?
Might be interested. Depends on the day. Well, I start out and I have to take the kids to school, the ones that are in school. And then E.E., bless his heart, he's stuck with riding a combine or a tractor or whatever.
And tell us how old he is.
He is too, and he is the feral third child. I have a 5-year-old little girl and a 4-year-old little boy, and then a 2-year-old little boy.
Wow.
But
3, 5 and under.
Yep. But well, we
What is your main crop production?
this year has been nothing but beans.
Beans.
Yeah, wheat prices weren't good to us the past couple of years. Cotton's too much of a baby, and then bean prices this year aren't looking that good either.
Wow. Yikes. Yikes.
It's a hard year for the farmers.
Yeah. And so as a farmer's wife, educator, that's a day job with a paycheck. Educator and ag business produces a little bit of profit, maybe maybe not.
We hope. Fingers crossed. Depends on the year.
But, and so I'm quasi-government employee, and, that get paid once a month. That farmer's wife doesn't get a weekly or monthly paycheck.
We get
I don't
yearly.
know. Yeah, yearly. Can you imagine, y'all? Can you imagine, ladies, listeners? Can you imagine? I'm sure our farmers' wives out there listening are shaking their heads and going, "Yep,
Yep, yearly." And with us only having one crop, I mean, it's all one lump sum. And can you try to budget a one lump sum for a whole year and not knowing what the next paycheck's going to bring?
Nope. What role do you play in managing the farm?
Oh, I keep up with the receipts. I am the lunch cook. I am the lunch bringer. I am the mover arounder when we have to move.
You mean by equipment?
Oh, yes, equipment. Yep.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
All while managing 3 kids and a bakery.
And then now the Praying Bakery. The Praying Bakery, we're going to talk about that in just a moment. And right now is a good time to talk about that. So tell us about this new business, this new small business.
It started out as a little girl. I loved baking, loved it. I even made my Pepaw, he used to work at Goodyear. I used to make him and all his buddies dozens and dozens of cupcakes. I used to send them all out. I don't know if they ate them or not, because who knows if they tasted good. They might have ended up in the trash. But that started it, the love for baking. And then I really wanted to try bread. I was like, look, I am so tired of the preservatives in store-bought bread. Have y'all ever seen bread mold from a store? It takes months. Months, yeah. And I was like, I don't want to feed my kids that. And
it's funny you say that. This is a total segue. We're going to get back to that. But I have to interject here. For those that don't know, Summer and I we co-lead a ministry at our church, the James 1 ministry that feeds elderly and widowed each week. And I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago, numbers of weeks ago, one of our volunteer cooks provided a package of dinner rolls that got brought to us unprepared. They weren't prepared that particular day. They're just pop in the oven, warm up dinner rolls. And those dinner rolls, I guess that meal was probably April, was it? What month is this? September?
September, yeah.
September now. You'll be hearing this in October. But those rolls still don't have a single bit of mold on them. They're still in the package.
And that goes into your body.
Sitting in the pantry.
Yeah.
They don't have it. And I tell my husband every time I open the pantry, I'm like, at church, I'm like, we've got to throw these rolls away. And then we get busy and don't throw them away. And then the next time, there are those rolls again. And I just know I'm going to open that pantry any day and they're going to be covered in mold. And they're not. So, back to this preservatives in the bread thing.
Yep.
So,
and my middle child, bless his heart, he is a bread eater. And I was like, I really want to feed him something that's actually good for the body. Now, I'm not saying bread is excellent, but
with some strawberry butter,
Jesus is the bread of life.
Exactly. But I would say last Christmas, his Nana asked me what I wanted for Christmas. And I said, I would really love a sourdough starter. Because, guys, I tried to make a sourdough starter. And it kept molding on me before I could get it ready. And that's how, there's nothing in it. Flour, sugar, water, whatever else. It's real simple, and it will mold real easily. And I was like, I can't get it started because it takes weeks for that junk to actually start to where you can make bread. And she said, okay. So Christmas came around, and guess what my gift was? A sourdough starter. So I went home. I said, I'm going to try it out. I tried it. It was so good. Oh, it was so good. It made my house smell so good. And then Matthew's like, I love you, but you're going to have to stop making this bread because I'm going to get bigger than the door in the house. And I said, okay. I said, so I'll start selling it at church. Well, church got to where it was overwhelming with the orders. And then I was like, well, I'll expand it a little bit more because, other people want to try it. And sure enough, now I have a spot at the Way We Were and do Facebook orders. And
it sells out every week. Every week. It truly is delicious. If you haven't had her sourdough bread or her banana nut bread.
Oh, yeah.
The Praying Bakery, ladies and gentlemen. If you're anywhere near Northwest Tennessee, it's a close enough drive to get Summer's sourdough bread. So let's talk a little bit about challenges that come with balancing family and farm life. Your oldest child now is in kindergarten. And the middle child is now in preschool. And it won't be long till the baby will be going. But you just touched on, you've got to get lunch to the field. You've got to move equipment. You've got to help, manage the farm and manage these little lives on top of that, and try to find some sanity for yourself on top of now being an entrepreneur as well. So talk to me about some of those challenges, especially in a rural setting, and trying to balance all of that. Where do you find your balance?
My poor husband.
Your poor
I
husband.
love him dearly, but it wouldn't be nothing without him. He truly, truly helps. Sometimes I'm not the best housekeeper by no means. And bless his heart, he'll work a full day and he'll come in and say, "Sweetie, it's okay. I'll help you clean when we put these kids down." And he does. After working a full day farming.
And see, that's back to the point I made a few moments ago about there's just something different about ag families. There's just something different about it. And I know that not every ag household is a Christian household. I'm not naive enough to think that. But the statistic I would be more interested in than men versus women in ag is Christian households versus not Christian households in ag, because I really think that's probably something that's just more unique to the ag
Well, I think
household.
to be a farmer or be in agriculture, it is more faith than anything.
Yeah, it is.
You
It's all
plant that
faith.
seed
When
and
you plant that seed, I always say, if the good Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, we hope to have a crop this fall. And every year, whenever we are finished with pumpkins, and people say, "Are you going to have pumpkins again next year? I can't wait to come back." I say, if the good Lord is willing,
Right.
we will.
Right.
And on my side of it, I don't grow crops, but we raise animals. And we've been praying for rain, not for the crops for y'all, but also because it's too early for me to put hay out. We're gonna have to feed hay all winter,
Right.
And the grass was dead in our pastures, and so I told you when we were in the waiting room, we've gotten some rain, and I looked out in the yard, and there was these little green sprigs popping up in my yard, and so the goats and the sheep and the horses will be happy to finally
Well,
have
and
some.
talking about feeding hay, it's been dry everywhere. So how far will you have to go, and how
far
much will you have to pay?
How much will I have to pay for that hay this
Exactly.
winter? Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and people that are not involved in farming in any way don't get it. They go to the grocery store and buy their food, and half the time don't even know where it came from. And it's just so much to think about and so much to pray about. So, Summer, how are you seeing women evolve in their roles on the farm? Are you seeing much change over the years?
Well, I mean, just go into co-op. I mean, there's going to get chemical water. There's actual women there. It's not just men.
Right?
I mean, and watching the tractors go by. I mean, it's more than just men in those tractors now. It's women, wives.
It's been this season. It's been this. I think it was planting season. I think it was planting season, not harvest, because we're just barely starting harvest at this point. But this planting season was the first planting season that I passed what I could immediately tell was a young woman driving the tractor. And I just had to grin.
I think a lot of those are daughters.
Yeah,
They are.
Yeah,
For a long time, daddies thought their sons were the ones supposed to be taking over.
That's right.
Well, my daddy had 3 girls. I was the closest thing to a boy my daddy had. And I think a lot of daddies are seeing, and I worked at a breeding and farrowing facility for a hog barn, and it was all
Shoo-wee.
females. It was all females. And you will see people in positions like that where they raise livestock. They want females in the breeding side because artificial insemination is the main way that most of our animals are done. They say a female is more precise and is more gentle and things like that. And they are actually encouraging females to take on those roles just because they are gentle. And pay attention to more detail, we'll say.
And that's true. It's true across industries too. You know, I have a day job. This is my fun gig, and you know, my day job pays for the fun gig. But in my day job, you know, it's workforce development and economic development, and even in the manufacturing side of things, we will hear employers, if they ever come across a female welder, they're offering her a job on the spot, typically, because they will tell you that the female welder is more precise because she's more patient in her feeds and just does a better job and pays better attention to detail. So There's strength in that, ladies. There's strength in that. Summer, one last question to you. What's your favorite part about life on the farm?
Watching the crops grow.
Really?
It is just our every night Can-Am rides, watching it grow every single night.
And knowing that God has a hand
Yep.
in that. God has a hand in that. Wow, ladies, I'm so honored to have had you here today to talk about all these different aspects of so many different aspects in one sector industry too. And manufacturing is manufacturing, pretty much, But in agriculture, there's so many subsectors within that one big sector. And I'm so glad to have had you here today to talk about your ventures and your excitement in all of those things. Your passion is very obvious from all three of you. There is a signature closing that we do on every episode of Authentically You. It'll never not happen. Any guest that doesn't want to answer this question won't be a guest on the episode. But it's important to me because the whole mission and purpose, as we had our conversations leading up to this episode and going over our talking points and things, I shared with you that the mission of Authentically You is to share the stories of women that are walking out their Christ-centered purpose. And for me, this is my Christ-centered purpose at this point in my life. Doesn't mean that's what it was 2 years ago, and it may not be what it is, 5 years from now. I don't know. But I'm walking out today what my Christ-centered purpose is, as I believe all three of you are in the roles that you play. And so to those women who are sitting out there, maybe strong in their Christian faith, maybe searching in their Christian faith, I always ask my guests to leave us with a scripture that's important to you, that has meaning to you as you are walking in this Christ-centered purpose, and why that scripture is important. Marilauren, let's start with you.
My favorite scripture changes with the seasons.
Right.
And my women's group at church is studying Romans right now. So that's where I am, and that's what I've been really looking at and studying. So I pulled a verse from one of my recent studies in the book of Romans, and it's Romans 1, verses 5 through 6. And it says, through whom, meaning Christ, we have received grace and apostleship to bring about the obedience of faith for the sake of his name among all the nations, including you who are all called to belong to Jesus Christ. And in the study, the reason that one's so important to me, it has nothing to do with the ag industry. It has nothing to do with necessarily specifically the role that I'm in right now, but just in any role. And studying that, the apostleship word, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't really understand. And when I looked it up, apostleship versus discipleship. Apostleship is to know Jesus. The apostles were his friends. The disciples follow, but the apostles know him. And then the word called, and digging into that more, it's to be empowered by the Holy Spirit to fulfill the gospel mission. And so in whatever role God calls me to, wherever he has me, sometimes I have felt like I've had whiplash in the ways I have been pulled in my adult life. But that call to spread the gospel mission wherever he has me, and in whatever capacity that I can.
Great. Summer, let's pivot to you.
Psalm 16:8. I have set the Lord always before me. He is at my right hand, and I will not be shaken. You always set your eyes on God, and nothing will ever tear you down.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's so true. So true. Lindsay.
Okay, I'm a rebel, so I chose two, and they're not in order. So to hear them, you may think, wow, that's kind of dark there, but it's not.
No,
This is what I get peace in. Psalms 56:3, when I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. And then 1 Peter 5:7, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Whether you're in ag, whether you're in education, whatever it is, we all have worries. We all have anxiety. We're all raising babies. We're all trying to make ends meet, to do all the things. Take a deep breath. Pray about it and look to God. because it will all work out toward his or for his plan.
For his plan.
For
It's
his plan.
So important to focus on that and to emphasize that it will all work out for his plan. God isn't, we say it often here for our repeat listeners. They probably get tired of hearing me say it, but we say it often that God is not the God of confusion. He's not the author of confusion and chaos, and that each one of those scriptures is so profoundly important to this particular episode. And so, ladies, we thank you so much for being here. This is our first episode to do with multiple guests. So that's been a challenge, and it's been fun and exciting. Lots of things going on behind the scenes here that people aren't seeing that have given me a bit of anxiety today. That scripture, that
Cast that on the Lord,
Yes,
and He
that's
will
right.
take care
Yes,
of it.
I am firmly believing that God gave you that scripture to give today for me, and I appreciate that so much. Thank you for giving up your time today to come and sit and talk about these fun issues, and some a little bit challenging. And gosh, ladies, go keep killing it. Go keep killing it in what you're doing. And thanks for sharing your faith journeys with our listeners today. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed that conversation. Be sure to hop over to authenticallyutn.com and subscribe to our email list to become an Authentically You insider. That's how you'll know when new releases of other episodes have dropped to our platforms and all other exciting news that we'll have to share about networking events, live recording episodes, and all kinds of fun things. Thank you for spending your time with us. I'm Maleia Evans, your host of Authentically You. Have a great day.